And the Winslow is a psychometric tool, which is a way of saying that we measure the human personality and we predict human behavior. And you'll notice this waterfall graphic. In the waterfall, I selected it because the Winslow profile provides us with a rich amount of data. It's like water flowing over that hill, and it's a vast amount of information, which then branches into two practical applications. One is a use in hiring, and one would be a use in coaching and development of our personnel. It's a very precise and accurate and objective way to predict human behavior. We need a tool to be able to look into the future and to be able to predict how people are going to act if we give them a job, or if we're going to put them on in our work group and our team. It would be really nice to be able to do that. So I would like to start by getting you involved and just maybe triggering your thinking a bit by asking, what is the greatest unsolved personnel problem in your organization? And if you have an answer, you can send a message to the chat room, or if you just want to keep that private, that's fine. But at least let it stir up in your thoughts a bit, because perhaps later we can address that. For some people, it has to do with hiring. For some people, it has to do with they have a little conflict in the organization, or they have one individual or two that simply aren't living up to their potential. There can be any number of issues that come up. They're very typical in organizations. It's that can happen. I'll tell you a quick story, because then I'll show you an example of our profile. We measure 24 traits when we administer the Winslow profile. I had a call from a client out in Colorado. They were new at the time, and the human resource manager called and said, "Can you take a look at this profile?" And I did. And I said, "Well, it looks like we dodged a problem here." And he said, "Well, I know that, and you know that. The problem is that the three of my managers want to hire this fellow. What do I do about that?" And I said, "Why don't you bring him in the conference room this afternoon, put me on the phone, I'll take the heat." He said, "I really appreciate that." So we got them on the phone that day, and I said, "Gentlemen, you don't know me that well, but I'd like to describe what your candidate, Ronnie, has said about himself. And I'll just point out with this arrow what these traits say as we go through. With this low sociability, I said he's very cool and aloof, and he doesn't like people. So for a salesperson, this is not going to do very well. Low exhibition means he's very unexpressive. He kind of just doesn't have he just doesn't like to communicate very well. Low nurturance says that he's lacks empathy and compassion, doesn't care about people very much. Low structure, very undisciplined individual, doesn't follow up if he promises to make a phone call or so, unlikely that he'll do that. It's rather rigid with this low flexibility. The endurance at a 2 tells me he's worn out by 10 o'clock in the morning. He's exhausted, can't work very long hours. The assertiveness at a 1 says he's an order taker. He doesn't want to persuade people to his point of view. The low boldness tells me he'd like to work on salary rather than commission, and I imagine this is a commission job. I see over here he has shattered confidence. He's temperamental with this low composure, and he's very thin-skinned, and in a sales job, there can be a lot of rejection. So low tough-mindedness can make a person very sensitive. And with this low contentment, he's just a person that just is not at peace. He's just an upset, sad individual. And then I paused and I said, "Well, gentlemen, how well does all this line up with what you're looking for in a salesperson?" And there was silence. Finally, one of them said, "But he came to us highly recommended." I said, "Oh, that's good. Who recommended him?" "Well, one of our top performers." I said, "Okay. Well, how does your top performer know Ronnie? Did they work together before?" "No." "Well, how do they know each other?" "Well, they're roommates." "Okay. Well, where does Ronnie the roommate work now?" I asked. "Well, he doesn't." I said, "Let me see if I got this straight. You have a high-performing salesperson with a roommate who has no job, and he's laying around the apartment all day taking naps and playing video games. And your high performing guy wants you to give him a job so he has an income and can pay the rent and he can keep an eye on him. Have I got that about right? I said, look, this is not about Ronnie and it's not about your top guy. It's about the three of you. If this is an example of what you're looking for, let me know and I'll help you get 10 more just like him. But if you would like to get 10 more like your top performer, tell me that and I'll help you get people like him instead. And I think this speaks to what we're looking for. And if we can know what our goals are, and if we have a tool, an X-ray, that can peer into the future and let us know how people will behave to a very high degree of statistical probability, then the odds begin tilting back in our favor as human resource officers, as small business people, as government officials, whatever role that you have right now. And you can begin making better decisions, both at the hiring level and later on, even if issues come up that on who to promote, on issues that come up as you're organizing teams and other things that come to your attention.